The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to a special edition of the Phixated podcast. I am your elated host, Mike Azalina, and I am joined by my also elated co-host, Regzy Boo. They did it. You're a National League Eastern Division champion. I'm a National League Eastern Division champion. We're all National League Eastern Division champs. Congrats, man.
Right back at you, buddy.
I feel like
I think it was my positive attitude that really pushed him forward tonight.
I got a text message before the game. I sent Regz a text message before the game. I said, "Are you ready, buddy?" And he responded, "I'm ready. I'm going to be positive tonight," or something to that extent.
Positive. I'm sending out positive thoughts.
And in the first inning, I forget what you said. Something about Nola or something about something or.
It was like first of all, it was like the third inning.
Was it?
Yeah, and I just said, or maybe it was just before JT's home run. I think it was just before JT's home run, which would have been the second. I said, "Just please score some runs for my sanity."
That's what.
And
it was.
you thought I said it like I was in the I was in the calmest mood I've been in for 5 days.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Watching baseball.
I told you, I was like, this was just sent. You know, the happy thoughts are still here. I said, this was just sent, out of pure joy. I was really mad last night. Like, I was
Me too.
More upset than I should be at a baseball game, to the point where I text you, I'm done for the night. Let me know what happens.
Yeah, I was very upset also last night. Probably, more upset than I think most people would be, or most people would assume, I should say. I think a lot of people, would assume that I'm a very calm game watcher, which I typically am. I mean, I'm a nervous person to watch a game with. But last night was frustrating. I gotta be honest, it wasn't that they lost. It was who they lost to and the way that they lost. But in the back of my head, I was also like, they're not losing tomorrow, so this doesn't matter. Like, I know that in the moment it mattered, and Wheels was so good, but this team, when they press, and they were clearly pressing last night, that's the performance that they give. And I wish that they could channel what they looked like tonight into basically every night. And I know it's not possible. I know that. But when they play like they do tonight, where they are relaxed and they're taking pitches out of the zone, but hitting pitches in the zone, forcing pitchers into the zone, they're nearly unbeatable. So yes, I was also very upset last night, but in the back of my head, it was like, they're going to get it done tomorrow. I'm not even worried about it.
I lose all context during some of these games. My mind goes into like crazy mode where it's just like, and it's really only because of the stuff you just talked about. Yep. It's the sheer, like, you're a major league baseball player, and this is what I teach 8-year-olds to do in baseball. Like, some of these guys have known this for 30 years, and just we get into these modes sometime where it's just like, no, let's forget everything that anyone's ever taught us about baseball and just do the complete opposite.
I also get into these. I also have to remind myself, and then I want to get to the positives.
Yes. This is a brief aside on last night.
It is important to remember from a fan perspective that, because I say the same thing. This is what I coached high school kids to do. This is what I was coached to do when I was in college and high school, whatever. The spin rates, the velocity, strikeouts are up all across baseball. As a matter of fact, people think the Phillies strike out a lot. They're 17th in baseball in total strikeouts. They are 15th in baseball in strikeouts per game. And there are 9 playoff teams ahead of them in that actual ranking. So, like, strikeouts are a thing all over baseball. I think for us, we watch them every night.
Yeah, of course. We're hyper
So
focused. Yes.
so we see these flaws, we hone in on them, we get so absorbed by them, and there's nothing wrong with it. But this is not a problem attuned to only the Phillies. It is the reason they've been knocked out 2 years in a row, but they're right back in it. They're here again. They are the first step that they set out on in spring training was they wanted to win the division.
Yeah.
And tonight they were able to do that. They have not looked back since they took first place on May the 3rd. That is incredible. And I understand the stuff that was happening in the division. I know that the Marlins got off to like a 1-18 start or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I know that the Nationals were not setting out to win. I know that the Mets got off to a Phillies start. And I know that the Braves were decimated by injuries. I get it. However, the Phillies had a really bad 2-month stretch. They were also banged up
Yeah.
for a long period of time. They didn't have Trey Turner. For a long period of time, they were without Bryce Harper. They missed JT Realmuto for 2 months. This was not like the Phillies had this amazing stroke of health.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what happened this year. They overcame a lot to get here. They didn't miss a Ronald Acuna for all season. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. But it's not like they didn't go without their hurdles. And here they are on September 23rd, 5 days before the end of the year, and they are the division champs. And there are a lot of kudos to go around, but the initial reaction from me is that's the first box checked. I'm very proud of this group. I feel very lucky to be a fan of this organization and this team. Yes, they drive us crazy. Yes, they have their shortcomings. Yes, we are going to have a very stressful October. But at the end of the day, they set out to do something. They found a way to do it. And that's one box checked. There are still 2 more to go.
Yeah. I think we have to. I just think it was really good context. Barkan, for what he is, like, he brought up a really good point. He's like, Aaron Nola was 18 years old the last time the Phillies won the division. Zach Wheeler was 21. Like, all these crazy numbers. It's like they won a pennant before they won the division. And I liken it to, and I told you this before we started, but I went back and watched our reaction video from a couple years ago when they finally made the playoffs after a decade plus of not making the playoffs. Like, not winning the division, not even getting in the playoffs.
Right.
And it's that same thing. It's just like, it's been so long. And like, for us, at least maybe for me, when I think back to like the 08, 09, 10, 11, all those times, you're like, we're in the heyday of this team. Like, I know, like, in 10 and 11, it started to kind of turn the other way. But those 08, 09 teams were just like, we were juniors and seniors in college. Like, this was our prime sports watching, years. Like, our weekends were just spent watching football, baseball, anything, right? Anything that was on TV. And to think it's been that long, since they've won a division. Like, I let my oldest son stay up tonight to watch the end of the game because it's like, he was not a thing 13 years ago. I mean, he's going to be 10, which is wild enough to think about that I'm about to have a 10-year-old, but like, it's one of those things. It's like letting him stay up is like what we got to experience or what we tried to experience in the 90s, right? When we were first becoming Phillies fans or things like that. So it's like, it's when that stuff kind of hits you, you're like, man, this doesn't happen all the time. For as much as we love this team and we watch every single game, and as much as I'm a psychopath during some of these games, it's like, I don't know why I care so much. I just do. And you just want to see him succeed in the past few years, the runs have been unbelievable. Like I always have to think back, like we didn't have the playoffs for over a decade.
Right.
Like it wasn't just a few years. It wasn't a short period of time where we didn't even have the playoffs. And then we've had this run over the past couple of years. And like we like freaking Bryce Harper and Trey Turner are on our baseball team, man. And like winning the division is such a huge historical thing for this franchise and for just like the Phillies. Not specifically for this team. It's like you said, for this team, it was the first checkbox. We always figured they would make the playoffs either way. Winning the division was a big deal. But like historically for this team and this franchise, like it's a huge deal to come back and win that after it's been so long. So as much as these past 2 years have been unbelievable, it's like we did not win the division in those years, man. Like it's wild to think that we won a pennant before we won the division after that long stretch. So it was great. I think it was great to see them acknowledge it. I think it was great to see them celebrate it. I think it's going to be nothing compared to when we start winning these playoff series, and hopefully wrap up the bye in a few days here. But it's just like historically when you like take a second to think back and just think about your fandom as a whole. It's like, man, I haven't seen a ton of these in my life, or even, just think about the last 20 years. We haven't seen a ton of these. So you have to treat them appropriately and acknowledge them and like acknowledge the fact that it's not easy to do. And that it's a big accomplishment. It just is, especially how they did it. Like they literally went, almost wire to wire with how they started the season.
I think you're spot on, man. So we're both 37, and the Phillies have won the division as of tonight 7 times in our lifetime.
Yeah.
One of those being when we were like 5 or 6.
Right.
And then a stretch of 5 straight during, like you said, our prime sports watching lifetime. 2007 to 2011.
Yeah.
College through like the first 3 years of our professional careers. And then now in organizational history, they've only made the playoffs 3 consecutive years, like 3 times.
This is the third, right?
Yes.
I think it was only 2 other times.
Correct.
And
once was
wild?
our other
exactly
stretch.
Right.
This
team's been around for over a century.
Yes, 130 years. Yep. It's really hard to describe just what this feels like from a fan perspective. I think you did a really great job of talking through it. But I sat there almost silently, and I think it like confused Andrea.
Yeah.
Because it's like, man, you could talk through a 9-inning game every other night. And then after the game, you can give me the full analysis. But tonight you're just sitting there. And all I could really like get out, because she kept whispering things. She wanted me to, you could tell, like she wanted to make sure I could hear what they were saying, but she was whispering things behind me to me. And it was like, I couldn't really talk. Making the playoffs was fun the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. It was. But I think Bryce said it really well in the post-game interview about how hard it is to win the division, especially the NL East.
Yeah.
Like every year there are 2-3 good teams in the NL East. It's not necessarily the AL East where it feels like every year all 5 teams are going to be good, even though that's not the case. Like there are bad teams over there year to year, but after watching the Braves do what they did, gosh, what is it? 6-7 years now?
For 5, 6, a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. And it's been tough to kind of sit back and watch. And we always knew that this Phillies team was talented enough. You'll have Braves fans, not all, but you'll have some who will say there's an asterisk next to this one and enjoy your pony show division championship. And I'm going to
enjoy the 10 years where we put a shitty team on the field every year. Like,
look, to me, you can say it all you want.
right. Thanks.
It
we will. Yeah, we will. Thank you.
It doesn't lessen the pennant,
No.
or not the pennant, but it doesn't lessen the flag we'll raise
Yeah.
for the division championship. Baseball's a hard sport to do this in. Longevity and continuity is not in a 162 game season. A lot can go wrong. A lot can go right, but a lot more can go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot went wrong for the Phillies this year.
Yeah.
A lot went wrong. But tonight they stand there as division champs. It was interesting to me, though, and this is where I want to go next. The celebration was super businesslike. They celebrated. Like you said, they did not go hard. There were a lot of hugs. They did the pictures. They played the new soundtrack that Stubbsy's worked on with some 3 local DJs, which is a pretty cool story. Great job by Alex on that one.
Killing it as always.
As always. And, T-Mac sort of alluded to it, not just sort of, but really alluded to it, that it was a lake in the locker room because they weren't drinking it, they were spraying it.
Right.
And some, they're going to have their drinks, they're going to have their fun, they're going to party, and they should. They deserve that.
Right.
Tomorrow almost feels like a scheduled loss anyway. It's either going to be Taiwan or the bullpen.
Yeah.
So it's a scheduled loss. But to me, it signals that they know. This was it. They wanted it, they got it. Goal number 2 is the pennant. Goal number 3 is the World Series. I hope with every fiber of my being that tonight's business-like celebration reflects the focus and the attitude of this team in 2 weeks. I'm not asking for him to be perfect. I'm not asking for him to not make mistakes, not chase at times, not be overly aggressive when they need to be. What I'm asking for is business-like, show up, win baseball games, do it with authority. Because when you do, you're not beatable. You're the best team in baseball. Top to bottom, 1-9, 1-4, relief pitching, all across the board. When they show up business-like, they're the best team in baseball. I know that other teams have star power. I was talking to my brother tonight, and he mentioned the Dodgers, and he said something that struck me. He was like, they have like 4 guys who could be in the top 10. And I questioned it at first. I was like, 4 guys in the top 10? And I was like, well, Shohei, yeah. Mookie, yeah. Freddie, yeah. So I don't necessarily think Will Smith is in that conversation, but he's in the top 15 to 20. Like,
I mean, he's a top 5 catcher in the whole
top
sport,
3.
probably. Yeah.
Top 3.
Oh,
top
yeah.
3. Yeah, he's incredible. But, yes, they're a very good team offensively, 1 through 5. Incredible. After that, not even close to the Phillies. Starting pitching, not close to the Phillies.
Yeah.
Bullpen, good. But still, I'd put the Phillies right there with them.
Yeah.
And then you look at the rest of the National League, they're good teams. There are some who are really hot. But when you look at it on paper, they're the best team in baseball. And I know there are people screaming at me, it's not one on paper.
Right.
We saw that with the Diamondbacks. I know. I watched.
Yeah.
I experienced it. But the Phillies lost that series because they were pressing, not because the Diamondbacks were better.
Yeah.
The Phillies got into that mode where they pressed. The first 2 games, it was obliteration.
Oh, yeah.
Obliteration. And then they lost 2 in Arizona, and it was like, oh, crap. Like, it was all pressing.
I still need someone to do a oral history.
Study.
No, an oral history on what happened on that plane ride. Something happened. I will go to my grave thinking they took a detour over the Bermuda Triangle before they got to Arizona. Because something, like, they flew through Area 51, some sort of gamma ray electromagnetic something happened, and that was not my baseball team that got off the plane. I will go to my grave believing this. You know me as not a conspiracy theory person. Most of it is BS. This I will never believe isn't true.
I don't like them playing in a dome, which is a conversation for when we
Well, that
podcast
field's
again.
that field's a nightmare. That
Yeah,
field's
well,
the dumbest baseball field I've ever seen in my whole life.
I just don't like domes, period, for them. But we'll talk about that when we
Yeah.
get to
Right.
when we get into the previews and stuff. But I think leading me into this question for you is the mentality going into this. We know their goals. We know that what tonight's celebration looked like. We know how we feel tonight. And we know that they all they need to do is either win 2 games or pair a win with a Milwaukee loss, and they've locked up a bye. We also know that they're a half a game behind the Dodgers. The Dodgers have an enormous series this week against San Diego. If San Diego takes 2 of 3 this week, and the Phillies take 2 of 3, or even 3 from the Cubs, there's a really good chance that they end up the 1 seed in the National League and potentially the 1 seed in the entire sport. I don't know where I stand on all that. I'm not thrilled about where that could put them in terms of who they play in the second round. But all of that aside,
Yeah.
your confidence level in hearing them talk tonight and watching them play tonight, we texted a few times. There were still some mishaps, some moments where we were like, that's where they got to come through. Point one being like Kyle Schwarber, Trey Turner.
Yeah. Second and
Rojas
third.
bunt
Yeah.
guys over in the bottom
Right.
of the 8th, and they can't get one more guy in. In the postseason, that's likely a 6-4 game and not a 6-2 game.
Right.
You're going to want that extra run or two.
Yeah.
Those are moments where we need better at bats. Now, Regz, I'll be honest with you. Kruk said it, and I believe it. I don't know. Maybe Kruk didn't say. Maybe I read it on a tweet. I read it on a tweet. It wasn't Kruk. But at that point, in their minds, they know this game is almost a wrap.
I get it. I even told you. I said this makes no difference. I get it. We're talking about tonight, like, and the mindset.
But in 2 weeks, we're screaming.
Like it
in
just
2 weeks, we're screaming.
I think it's a very relatable thing, and this is something Bill Simmons talks about all the time on his podcast, specifically with NBA teams. For a long time, people seem to think that like the Warriors had this switch they could flip. That when it got to the playoffs, they would just lock in. Or like the Miami Heat when LeBron was there, right? We're going to, like, the regular season is what it is, but they're going to flip the switch when they get to the playoffs. Or the Lakers, even like the LeBron and AD Lakers. Everyone talked about, well, it'll be different in the playoffs because LeBron's the best player that's ever lived and AD is who he is, right? They're going to flip the switch. And he always talks about, he's like, guys, there's no switch. Like, it doesn't exist. The best teams are the best teams, not because they can focus when they need to. It's because they're focused all the time. And look, does that mean they're going to be perfect all the time? Absolutely not. We live it like this sport with how many games they play. It's impossible to be perfect all the time. It's impossible. Even in an NBA season, right? In an 82 game season, it's impossible to be perfect all the time. But the best teams are focused from start to finish. And my only issue with this team is that they do have times where their focus wavers. And I think you could say it both ways. It's the focus and it's the pressing that you talked about earlier. It's the overthinking. It's the over trying. It's the just not being locked into what their job is in that particular situation. I want to hit a 15-run home run right now. All you have to do is hit the ball to the right side of the field and score a run. Like, you don't need to hit a double here, Kyle Schwarber. You don't need to hit like a 4-run home run or a 5-run home run. That's not what you're being asked to do right now. And we've seen this team in their bad stretches. They get into this mindset where I have to win it right now. I have to win it in my at bat. I have to win it with this swing.
Game 6 and 7 last year.
And when this team is at its best, as in the first half of this season, it was get to the next guy. I'm going to have an at bat that is going to bring the next guy up, and he's going to have a great at bat that's going to bring the next guy up, and the next guy up, and the next guy up. And they were unbeatable.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you talk about this is the best team in baseball. That's what we're talking about. Like, that's what this team is capable of. And my only thought for the playoffs is, guys, you've proven your ability to do this. You've proven it. Even without Bryce hitting a ton of home runs, even with Kyle not hitting the same amount of home runs he hit last year. You know, Stott having a down year, Marsh being in and out, Hayes, getting hurt and not being maybe the kind of thing we were looking for in an outfielder. Casty being up and down, Turner being hurt, all these things. Like, guys, you've proven your ability to win baseball games by just a relentless beating of the opponent. Not from the one huge overhand right. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have this ability, and they just have to be in the mindset that my at bat is like, I just need to have a good at bat right now, because it's going to bring the next guy up. And if our lineup has this mentality, we are unbeatable. We're unbeatable.
Yeah. It's all of them too.
It's every single person. It's not just like the first three. You're absolutely right.
It's all of them. And when they're all in that mentality, top to bottom, they're just so tough to pitch to, because like you said, it's past the baton, and they put pressure on you all across the board. My hope, Regz, my deep down hope is they kind of put it in cruise control. And now they have a couple of weeks. Look, we're going to be sitting on the edge of our seats when they clinch that bye. We're going to be sitting on the edge of our seats all during wild card week, because they won't play a game from Sunday to Saturday.
Yeah.
And in my mind's eye, that feels good for a guy like Bryce Harper, who needs some time off. That feels good for a guy like JT Realmuto, who could use some days up off his legs. All of them. I can think of something for everybody. That is probably Bohm's hand. Schwarb's Nick has played 162 games. They might finally give him a day off tomorrow.
Yeah, right.
Like, he might finally get a day off tomorrow. But this whole year has led up to this point. And I think for us, we're going to be on pins and needles a little bit, because there's this whole narrative out there at the moment that the bye kills the better team. You're not rewarded.
Yeah.
I'm not there, and I'm going to turn you for this in a second. I think we look at it from, well, it's hurt the Dodgers and it's hurt the Braves. Okay. Well, the Dodgers have been choke artists for a decade now when it comes to the playoffs outside of COVID. And the Braves, I mean, they ran into the Phillies, who were a buzzsaw both years. I don't know that was as much about the Braves as it was how hot the Phillies were.
Yeah.
So, look, the Phillies took offense to that being, described as the reason that they lost. That they took offense to that in spring this year. So we won't feel good about the bye. And neither of us will use it as an excuse, but we won't feel good until they win game 1 of the DS.
Right.
Then we'll be like, okay, all right. Because you lean on Zach in that game to hold a team to a run or two, and you squeak out maybe a 3-run home run and win that game.
And the other team's using their 4th starter.
Maybe.
Hopefully. Right? If they've gone, to a game
3.
3. Right.
Yeah,
but still, it's Zach Wheeler against a number 3 or an opener.
Right.
And here's what I think. I think specifically with the Braves, when you talk about that team, that team was a team that relied on momentum. Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson, Ozzy Albies, Austin Riley, Ozuna, all those guys, when they're hot, they're hot. That's how that team is. That wasn't a team that needed a few days to just like be hyper focused. Those were teams that needed to play all the time so their guys could be in a rhythm and like just be as hot as possible. I think this Phillies team is uniquely set up to benefit from a few days of hyper focus, of just get your work done. But when we get into this series, we are hyper focused on what we have to do and how we need to lock in. I don't think this is a team of, again, from the other perspective, I think when they get on bad runs, they tend to get on them all together. So that's not great. But I think from the other side, I think this team is uniquely set up to benefit from those couple days to get absolutely locked the F in to the job at hand. And just be like frothing at the, like, not to the point where like we have to go nuts, but just like every single guy knows exactly what their job is and what they have to do. Unmute yourself, pal.
Sorry, I was chewing pretzels. I think that they're definitely in the space where they know what this bye does for them physically.
Yes.
And I'm sure they have a plan. Like, if there's one thing I know about Topper, he's always got something proactively working. Like they talked about last year how when they got to the NLDS and they had like a couple of days off and they got to Atlanta, the players all did their normal thing. Like JT went golfing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did their normal routine. They didn't change anything from the regular season. So my guess is, even though they're not playing games next week, they're going to make sure that they're doing something that ties into the regular season. They're going to keep themselves in a routine. I was talking to a friend of the show, Adam Schaefer, today, and he was just as frustrated as we were about, their lack of pitch selection last night and how that's their Achilles heel. We all know it. And we talked about how it would be beneficial to get maybe your top 6, 7, 8 minor league spin rate guys. Bring them up here next week and just do live it's not the same.
Yeah.
It's not crowd action live, but right. to give them that, and they could do that. They could do what the Braves did last year. Tell me fans wouldn't buy tickets to come see the Iron Pigs play the Phillies and the money goes to charity. Like, we'd fill that stadium in a minute.
Yeah.
Next week. Like, I'd go down twice.
Yeah.
I have points. I'll stay over. Like, I don't care. But we would absolutely go and make noise and be loud and get into it so that they could be in that postseason mentality. And I don't think you could do 5-inning games.
Right.
Just keep them loose, keep them and like, you don't have to play everybody every day. Simulated games, make them 5 innings simulated. Just get them out there and let them play.
Yeah. I just don't, I truly believe that time off doesn't distract these guys. Like, I truly believe that the time off is only going to serve to focus every single one of these guys. I think this team gets in trouble when they press, like you said. We've seen it. Like, days off this isn't going to make them press. It's not. Those guys are going to come into those first games hyper focused. I don't think they're going to be antsy. I don't think they're going to be overly anxious or something like that. I just don't think that this is where this team is. Maybe in maybe you could say that if this was 22 and it's their first time this group is going to the playoffs and getting into these kind of moments, that maybe you could make the case that that's what would happen. But this is not what this team has been. And I really don't think that the time off would do anything but cause these guys to be hyper focused. Now, look, can they execute on that? That's to be determined. I'm not saying that they're going to come out and just roll through everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think it's going to cause them to come out and be anxious about what's about to happen. I really don't.
Well, look, the end of it all, we got step one. I assume within the next, maybe not in the next 2 games, although the Cubs look like a team that just wants to go home.
Yeah.
So, they should win one of the next 2, if not, tomorrow and Wednesday. It'd be great to win tomorrow. Milwaukee loses, you lock in the number 2, and then whatever happens from there happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'll relax when they get the bye. That's when I'll relax. That being said, it feels good to win a division title.
Yes,
I love the we own the East shirts. I'm already gonna get online here soon. I wanna say one thing.
Yeah.
Before we go, and if there's anything else you want to add, I'm glad Topper brought Middleton into the fray tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
The message was clear. I'm glad he let him remind the group of what the goal is. I don't think this team needs reminding. There's enough veteran presence in there. I half wonder if it was just, look, we're here. We know what else we got to do. We still want the bye. We want as many games at home as we can get. This place is an advantage. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But John Middleton carries weight in that clubhouse. These players respect him. They love him. They're grateful for him, just as we are as fans.
Mm-hmm.
So with him having the opportunity to speak and dropping the F-bomb on live TV, I was fired up. And I've said it a million times on this show, but I'm so appreciative of him. And I just want to one quote. I know you saw it. His quote after tonight, I think he was just recently interviewed like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
The goal is to win it. But next year is another year. So whatever happens this year, we're going for it next year. Regz, if there was ever a sign that Juan Soto is in the purview of John Middleton, that's the one.
This is going to be a whole podcast. So we're not going to go into this anymore. I think you're exactly right. I think Topper brought him in to focus everyone on, again, what the goal is. This was, like you said, this was the first checkbox. Right. But this isn't the big one, man. Yeah. Like it's just not. So
it's not, plain and simple. I agree.
But you can't not enjoy accomplishments.
No.
So no. You enjoy tonight. You take pride in your accomplishment. But no, this is just the first checkbox, and it's the smallest one.
It is. It is the smallest one that they will face from this point on. I think. Well, no, I think the bye's the smallest one that they'll face from this point on because it seems so attainable now. You got to win 2 games in 5. You got to win 2 out of 5 games at this point, or the Brewers have to lose 1 or 2. Right. Like there's a whole any mixture of 2 Phillies wins and
2 Brewers
1
losses.
Braves loss, whatever. We'll get the job done. So it's but the pennant and then the World Series. We want to be playing that last week of October. If we're doing that, then the goal's in sight. And this team is built to win now. So, dude, it's been a ride.
Oh my God.
But we made it. And we'll be back. We're gonna come back. Probably, we haven't talked about it. We gotta come back in the next 2 nights though, because I'll be driving to South Bend on Thursday. So we gotta recap that Eagles win. We gotta talk about this weekend's game with the Bucks. We gotta hopefully by that point, maybe the Phillies will have clinched a bye and we can talk about, what's next for them. And sort of look around the league a little bit and
Good. Sounds like
where they
sounds like a Wednesday night.
A Wednesday night. Looks
Love
like
it.
a Wednesday night for us. Okay, Wednesday it'll be. All right, friends, thanks for listening. I'm not going to go through all the things. Do the YouTube, do the podcast, follow us on social media if you're not sure where. Listen to the end of the last episode or the end of the next one. This was just supposed to be a catch-all celebration. We're super proud of this team.
Yeah,
it's been 13
years, man.
It is amazing to me that I was 24 years old when they last won a division championship. 24 years old, living in an apartment. Nope, I lie. Living in a house with two buddies, and on the brink of what I thought was going to be a World Series that ended up being the devastating end of what was the best run of my sports life. So here's to hoping that this is just the beginning.
Here's to step number one, buddy.
Step one is of 3, and that we're back here October 29th celebrating a World Series win. We love you all for listening. Phils, we're proud of you. We love you, even though you drive us freaking nuts. Be back on Wednesday night to touch base on where they're at and hone in on the Birds. But for now, congrats, Phillies. Congrats to the Phillies fans who have stuck with them for the last 13 years. And we love you guys. We love you, and we're grateful for you. Go Phils.
Go Phils, baby.
Oh, my God. Deep to right field. Way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.